Well, I was going to read it every Sunday night, because my first video was, I made it on a Sunday night, of the New Moon series that I'm going to be doing. As I explained in the first video, Naramon read Twilight, and he didn't want to read New Moon, for obvious reasons. So I'm going to read New Moon, and I'm up to chapter 2. BAM! Stitches. Alright, so, am I really going to read it again? Yeah. Alright, so, chapter 2, Stitches. Carlisle was the only one who stayed calm. Centuries of experience in the emergency room were evident in his quiet, authoritative voice. Then he sends everybody outside. See, I'm going to do this, I'm going to read this a little bit differently to what I did last time. It took me 45 minutes to read the first chapter, and it bored me half to death. So, now I'm going to read it a little bit more like Naramon did. He sort of read through it and then sort of goes, okay, this is what this is doing right now. Okay, so, at this point, Bella is getting her arm stitched up by Carlisle because Edward had thrown her back to save her from Jasper, because she cut her finger on the present that Edward and Alice gave her, and she's gone, oh no, and then Jasper's gone, oh my god, blood, and then Edward's seen that and he's gone, oh my god, no, and then he's thrown Bella back, and she's landed in the glass and stuff, and Jasper's run at her, and Emmett and Edward got him out of there. So she's got blood dripping out of her arm now. It was pulsing out of her arm, as I remember it. So now Carlisle is actually going to be stitching up her arm, so that's what it's going through in the first 3 pages. Basically, Carlisle picks her up, gets her a towel on her arm, and then say, let's take her through the kitchen table, yay! So that's 3 pages, at least, it goes through to pick Bella up, put a towel on her arm, and then take her through the kitchen. It takes 3 pages to actually do that. Okay, so he took all the pieces of glass out of her arm. It says, the only sound besides our quiet breathing was the soft plink plink as the tiny fragments of glass dropped one by one onto the table. So, yeah. So Bella's kind of going, how can you sort of do this even when Alice and Esme, who've been around the wild, were the easiest ones to sort of see blood, and it's just like, you! And, yeah. Carlisle's saying it's years of practice. He barely notices the scent anymore. He's not a true vampire anymore. He has no vampire left in him. He only lives for hundreds of years and is pale and has sharp teeth. Bella's quite surprised that there's so much glass in her arm. So is everybody else who's ever had fallen onto broken glass, because it doesn't actually stick into you that well. Apparently Carlisle's... Oh, let's remember, I was calling him Carly because Charlie is so cool. I call him Carly. It's much more fun to call him Carly. So, Carly, whose father was a clergyman, I don't even know what a clergyman is, neither does any other person in the world, and unless you're a clergyman or the family of a clergyman, or have any relation to a clergyman, you probably know what it is, but I certainly don't. So, I didn't understand what he was doing even when he lit the match. Then he threw it into the alcohol soap fibres and the sudden blaze made me jump. So what he's actually done is all the bloody gauze and stuff he's put into a bowl and he lit a match and put it on fire. He said sorry, that ought to do it. So I didn't agree with my father's particular brand of faith, but never in the nearly 400 years now since I was born have I ever seen anything to make me doubt whether God exists in some form or another, not even in a reflection in the mirror. Huh. So he's religious now. He's God. He knows God. He thinks he believes in God. That's interesting. A vampire. That's interesting. Alright, The next little bit is Bella thinking, and we all know that that turns out to not be great. This chapter is really not setting up for anything nice, anything good. It's really not doing anything. Let's go 3 pages ahead when they're trying to find out how Jasper is. Carlisle sews faster than any other doctor I've had. They were both chuckled. She's talking to who's she talking to? Esme! Oh, Esme! I was gonna call her Esme, that's right, if you remember my last video. She was mopping the floor where she'd fallen with straight bleach. Ah, so they're mopping up all of her blood so that it'd smell it. She offered to do it. She says, oh, I'm done. And Esme's asking how she feels. She says she's fine. They chuckled at the fact that Carlisle sews really fast. Alice and Edward came back. Alice hurried over to her. I'll get you something less. I don't even know what this is. Makeba? I don't know. She got a shirt of Esme. It was close to the same colour as mine had been. Carlisle wouldn't notice, I was sure. How bad is it? I couldn't be sure if my whispering was a waste of effort, even though we were upstairs with the door closed. Perhaps he could hear me. I'm presuming she's talking about Edward. She says, I'm not sure yet. She says, how's Jasper? She sighed. He's very unhappy with himself. It's all so much more of a challenge for him, and he hates feeling weak. And Bella's saying, oh, that's not his fault. She's the one who bleeds. God, Bella, be more considerate. Don't bleed in front of the vampires. God. Tell me you forgive me, she's saying to Jasper at this point. Is forgive you for what? She says, if I'd been more careful, nothing would have happened. Jasper's saying, Bella, you gave yourself a paper cut. That hardly deserves the death penalty. She goes, it's still my fault. Yes, it is your fault. You should have been more careful untying your birthday present in front of vampires. You should understand that paper cuts happen, and in front of vampires it's not a great thing. Then there's more dying and blood and Alice and flowers. Boring. There's something about a CD. We get to the part where where Edward leaves. Now Edward and Bella are kissing. Ooh, okay, I'll read this last page because it's like one. How many pages was the second chapter? Oh, quite a lot. Oh, a little bit less than chapter 1, but I've skipped most of it. Alright. I'll read the last page and. Okay, now she's being a little bit greedy and wants another kiss from Edward. Heaven forbid that I should do anything I don't want to do, he said in a strangely desperate tone as he put his hand under my chin and pulled my face up to his. The kiss began. Let's describe the kiss. Here we're going to describe the kiss now. The kiss began much the same as usual. Edward was as careful as ever, and my heart began to overreact like it always did. And then something seemed too strange. Suddenly his lips became much more urgent. His free hand twisted into my hair and held my face securely to his. And though my hands tangled in his hair too, how can you tangle in his short hair? Gah! And though I was clearly beginning to cross his cautious lines, for once he didn't stop me. His body was cold through the thin quilt, but I crushed myself against him eagerly. When he stopped, it was abrupt. He pushed me away with gentle, firm hands. I collapsed back into my pillow, gasping, my head spinning. Something tugged at my memory, elusive on the edges. Oh, God, it was... Sorry, he said, and he was breathless too. Oh, God, come on, it's a kiss. That was out of line. I don't mind, I panted. Oh, but you were kissing, you weren't running a marathon. He frowned at me in the darkness. Try to sleep, Bella. No, I want you to kiss me again. You're overestimating my self-control. Which is tempting you more. My blood? Oh, I hate you. Here we go, I've read that wrong. Which is tempting you more, my blood or my body? I challenged. He said, it's a tie. He grinned briefly in spite of himself, then was serious again. Now, why don't you stop pushing your luck and go to sleep? Oh, threat. Fine, I agreed, snuggling closer to him. I really did feel exhausted. Oh my God, you didn't run a damn marathon. He just a shot catching up with me, no doubt. Trying to be sneaky about it, I pressed my injured arm against his shoulder so his cool skin would soothe the burning. I felt better at once. I was halfway asleep, maybe more, when I realized what his kiss had reminded me of. Last spring, when he'd come to leave me to throw James off my tail. When he had to leave me to throw James off my trail, Edward had kissed me goodbye, not knowing when or if we would see each other again. This kiss had the same almost painful edge for some reason I couldn't imagine. I shuddered into unconsciousness as if I were already having a nightmare. Well, we're up to chapter 3 already, the end. So I'm guessing this is the chapter where, oh, I'm not going to do any spoilers, just in case anyone hasn't actually read it nor watched the movie. Okay, Edward leaves. Well, there's chapter 2. So, in chapter 1, she had this is her birthday. During chapter 1 we found out it was her birthday. I'll put the book back to where it sits. So chapter 1, it was her birthday, and she got presents and she went to school and everyone was like, happy birthday, Bella! And then at the end of that, she cut her finger on some of the wrapping on one of her presents, and then Jasper jumped at her and Edward threw her back against a glass table plate with plates on it and stuff, and Emmett and Edward had jumped on Jasper and pulled him out of the room, and Alice had to leave, and Esme had to leave, and everybody had to leave except Carly. Everyone had to leave except Carly. He's the only one who can show a little self-restraint because he's an emergency room doctor. He sees blood all the time, and even though he's a vampire, he's not a very good one. Yeah, so that was basically the first chapter. Second chapter, she got her arm stitched up, and then Bella kissed her. She found a little bit more about Carly. She found out a little bit more about Carly. And then Edward kissed her with some strange sort of kiss that she had when he left before. It's setting up a little bit of suspense there on what's going to happen now. And that's the end of chapter 2, basically. It wasn't as long as chapter 1, thank God. See, it's only 14 minutes, 14 minutes, 15, 16, 17. It's only 14 minutes, almost 15 minutes in, and the last one took me 45 minutes. See, I did that a lot better, I think. I'm out of torture for a lot less. Okay, so, yeah. Have a good night, everybody, and see you maybe next week for chapter 3. See you then, buddy. Oh, I don't want to read this anymore. We'll have to come back next week and read chapter 3. What you got? Yeah.